In 1971, a Stanford basement was turned into a makeshift prison. The world learned that anyone could become evil with power, or so they thought. But what if the most famous experiment in psychology was not just flawed, but staged? Behind the headlines, cracks began to appear. Some guards took cues from the experimenters. Some prisoners acted to fit a role. There was a script nobody would admit to. If corruption can be directed, are we truly evil or just following instructions? The real story is not what you were taught, so let us start at the scene where it all supposedly began. August 1971, 24 young men, all college students, answered an ad for a paid psychology study at Stanford. They were screened for health, stability, and any sign of aggression, then randomly assigned as either guards or prisoners. The setting was a windowless basement in Jordan Hall, stripped down and rebuilt into a miniature jail, with cells that had heavy doors, a yard, a solitary confinement closet, and a warden's office. Prisoners wore smocks, stocking caps, and ankle chains. Guards dressed in khaki uniforms mirrored sunglasses and carried batons. Names disappeared. Prisoners became numbers. Guards insisted on being called Mr. Correctional Officer. The plan was to run the experiment for 2 weeks. But almost immediately, things took a dark turn. Within 36 hours, guards began enforcing strict rules, staging head counts in the middle of the night, and inventing humiliating punishments for the smallest infractions. Prisoners were ordered to do push-ups, clean toilets with their bare hands, and endure endless roll calls. Some guards taunted and threatened. Others stood by, silent. It was a test of will, but also of identity. No one used real names, and no one could leave without permission. By the second day, prisoners rebelled. They barricaded their cell doors with their beds, shouted at the guards, and refused to cooperate. The guards responded with fire extinguishers, stripping prisoners naked, and isolating the so-called ringleaders. Over the next few days, emotional breakdowns swept through the cells. One prisoner screamed to be released, another sobbed uncontrollably, and a third went on a hunger strike. The guards' behavior grew harsher, more creative, and more unpredictable. After just 6 days, the experiment was abruptly shut down. The official explanation was that the situation had spiraled out of control. The story spread. Ordinary people, given power and uniforms, became cruel. Textbooks and documentaries repeated the lesson. It was not bad apples, it was the barrel. The basement prison became the proof that situations are stronger than personalities, and that under the right conditions, almost anyone could turn into a villain. Not everyone in the basement acted like a mindless villain. Some guards handed out harsh punishments, but others were awkward, even reluctant, and a few quietly tried to help prisoners cope. The idea that the situation alone forced everyone into cruelty started to fall apart as soon as people began talking about what really happened inside those walls. One guard, Dave Eshelman, later admitted he was playing a part. He said he based his persona on a tough prison warden from an old movie, pushing the humiliation further each day because he thought that is what the researchers wanted. He called it a performance, a giant act. He was not possessed by the uniform or the power. He was improvising for the audience he believed was watching. It was not just the guards. Douglas Corpy, the first prisoner to break down, later said he faked his emotional collapse to get out early. He was stressed, sure, but he also realized the only way to escape was to act desperate enough to convince the staff he needed to leave. His breakdown became one of the most famous moments in psychology textbooks, but it was as much strategy as suffering. Researchers started to wonder whether the students were acting out some prison fantasy or just giving the experimenters what they wanted. When psychologists ran a follow-up survey, they asked college students to imagine a prison experiment and predict what guards and prisoners would do. The answers matched the Stanford results almost perfectly. Even without being there, people expected guards to be cruel and prisoners to rebel or break down, just like in the movies. Demand characteristics, the tendency to perform the role you think is expected, were baked in from the start. The basement was not just a prison, it was a stage, and everyone inside was reading from a script they already knew by heart. The question stopped being, "Are we evil?" and started sounding more like, "Who told us how to act?" Archival tapes from Stanford's basement reveal a side of the experiment that never made it into textbooks. Before the first shift, guards were called together for an orientation. The instructions were not neutral. Guards were told to create an atmosphere of boredom, fear, and powerlessness. They were told to prevent escapes, to call prisoners by number, to make the experience feel real. One memo later found in Zimbardo's files spelled it out. Guards were told to maintain control by any means necessary, short of physical violence. The coaching did not stop at the first briefing. When prisoners rebelled, experimenters reinforced the message. Guards were encouraged to get creative, to break solidarity, to keep prisoners off balance. They were advised to use psychological tactics, sleep deprivation, arbitrary punishments, and stripping away privileges. Zimbardo himself, playing the warden, told them, "You have to be tough. Don't let the prisoners get the upper hand." Audio from the archives captures these directions. Guards are heard asking, "How far can we go?" The response was, "Make them feel they have no control. We want to see how they react to powerlessness." The line between observation and participation blurred. The guards were not just improvising cruelty, they were following a script handed down by the people running the study. What looked like spontaneous sadism was in reality carefully staged. The guards performed for the researchers, who watched from behind one-way mirrors, taking notes on every humiliation. The experiment was less a window into human nature and more a stage play, with the staff as directors and the guards as actors. The so-called proof that situations turn ordinary people cruel started to unravel, replaced by the unsettling possibility that the worst behavior was not discovered, it was manufactured. In 2002, psychologists Steve Riker and Alex Haslam set out to test the prison experiment story with a new approach. They built a mock prison complete with cells, uniforms, guards, and prisoners. This time, the setup was televised, and every move was monitored by ethics committees and psychologists. 15 men, screened for mental health and stability, volunteered. Roles were assigned, power was unequal, and the environment looked just as harsh as Stanford's basement. But the instructions were different. Guards were not told to be tough or to make prisoners feel powerless. They were simply told to figure out how to manage the prison. There was no hidden script, no nudging from the researchers. The results were nothing like the classic story. Guards struggled to agree on rules. Some wanted to enforce order. Others felt uneasy about being harsh. Instead of banding together, the guards grew divided and uncertain. Prisoners, meanwhile, began to form a shared identity. By the end of the week, they organized, pushed back against the guards, and even negotiated better conditions. No one broke down. No one turned into a monster. The prison did not spiral into chaos or cruelty. Instead, the lines between roles blurred, and the whole system collapsed into a kind of uneasy democracy. So what actually drives people to act cruel or to resist? The answer is not just the situation. It is a mix of three things: the stage, the script, and the spotlight. The stage is the setup, the rules, the uniforms, the environment. The script is what people think they are supposed to do in their role, what a good guard or a good prisoner acts like. The spotlight is what gets attention, praise, or protection. What behavior is noticed or rewarded by leaders and peers. In the BBC study, the stage was harsh, but the script was vague and the spotlight never rewarded cruelty. Without all three parts working together, tyranny never took hold. Power doesn't turn people cruel by magic. Scripts and spotlights do. Every group you join has someone shaping the rules and rewards, online or off. those choices still decide who rises, who falls, and who gets hurt. The real test isn't whether we're evil, it's who writes the script.